So I talked behind closed doors with people for a long time, years and years and years. Someone in your situation whose mom essentially rescued him as a young kid. You have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother.
Okay. Got people out. And then she passes away. That can be an untethering moment for people. What kept that from being an untethering moment for you?
Well, it depends on what you mean by untethering, right?
Okay.
So when I think of tethers, I think of that as a metaphor for keeping me bound to something and not being free.
So it was a freedom moment.
Yeah, and in a way, not because of her, but because of what happened. I think one of two things could have happened. Whenever there's a sort of car crash like that, you can either course correct or you can use that car crash to careen into something else, right? And then it turns into this terrible accident. So when my mom died, I went down to Florida. She moved down there right before she passed, like a few months before she found out she had stage 4 lung cancer. She had moved down there to finally retire, right? And then so she spent her last days in St. Petersburg, Florida, living off Social Security. And I went down there one last time after she passed, and this time it was to deal with her stuff. And she wasn't a hoarder, but she had 65 years worth of accumulations, right? She had stuff. And it was all crammed into this 1-bedroom apartment. Old antique furniture, and it wasn't junk. It was things she had accumulated. She really found value in. But the things that are sentimental to her, I could add sentiment to them and make them sentimental to me. But I realized in that moment, before the whole minimalism thing, it was my first sort of dipping my toe into the waters of minimalism. I had to deal with her stuff. And so I looked at all these things, and I did what any good son would do. I rented a giant U-Haul. In fact, I had to wait an extra day to get that 26-foot U-Haul, right? I was just going to bring it all back to Ohio. Now, I already had my own house with a full basement full of stuff, an attic full of stuff, bedrooms full of stuff, so I couldn't commingle mom's stuff with my stuff. And so I rented a big storage locker to just keep all of her things, like a mausoleum of stuff.
Yes, that's a great way to phrase that.
And then I was looking through these things, and I had a few sort of realizations as I was going through the things. The first one was that I was holding on to it because I was holding on to her memories. And I found these 4 boxes under her bed. It was my old elementary school paperwork, grades 1 through 4. And I realized, oh, she was holding on to the memories of me. Then I also realized, like, wait, these boxes have moved from house to house to house, and they've been sealed for decades.
No one's ever opened them. Yes!
Never. And so the memories aren't in our things. The memories are inside us. And that was like the first big aha moment as I was going through those things. And then I looked around at all of her things, and I said, oh, wait a minute. I'm getting ready to do the same thing. Except instead of storing her things in a box under my bed, I was going to cram it all into this big box with a padlock on it, a storage locker, and then pay hundreds of dollars every month to keep things, just in case. The 3 most dangerous words in the English language. Those 3 words justify us holding on to so many things that are actually getting in the way of our contentment. And so I called up U-Haul and I canceled the truck. And then I called and I canceled the storage locker. And I spent the next 12 days selling or donating almost everything. Not everything, but almost everything. And I learned some other lessons along the way. One was about sentimental items. Because if I would have kept thousands of sentimental items, well, that's sort of like watering down the sentiment in a way. But by keeping just a handful of sentimental items, I was able to get far more value from those few things I kept than if they were all just crammed into that giant storage locker.
I was so happy when I got that phone call because I was supposed to go down there and help him move all that stuff.
That's the worst thing about having friends is the move. There's nothing worse. I'd rather my friend call and say, hey, man, my house is on fire. I'll help you. But it's, right. Hey, man, can you help me move?
Oh, man.
Nope.
I had somebody ask me one time, I was like, I will pay for half of the moving company to move your stuff.
I actually had 2 buddies do that.
That's how
once.
I will help you.
Like, they were going to show up to my house on a Saturday morning to move, and a truck rolled up, and they said, I bought an hour, and he bought an hour. We're not lifting. We're not doing that. But
yeah.
So tell me about your growing up.
Oh, man. So I had a lot of drug abuse, physical abuse. My mom and dad split up when I was in the 2nd grade. My dad was a very strict, very hardcore Jehovah's Witness, so I grew up kind of in that religion. I lived with him most of my childhood. My mom, he got married, had a kid. My mom got married, had 4 kids. So I've got 5 half-brothers and sisters. Stepdad was, he yeah, he used to beat the crap out of me for sure. But it's at 40 years old. Oh man, I've been through so much therapy and different work, like letting go of the trauma and stuff, and I feel like I have been able to let go of a lot of that. Even with my mom, like my dad doesn't talk to me right now because I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, and I've kind of like
Yes.
spoken out against, like, hey man, which I thought I was gonna be like, oh dad, here's why you shouldn't be a Jehovah's Witness, and he was like, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't have done that. And then my mom, her and I are actually really doing a good job of like rekindling our relationship and forgiving each other because I guess we both probably put each other through some trauma. Like as a child, I used to think like, oh, I'm not responsible for putting her through trauma, and maybe I'm not, but the stuff that comes up is still, those are her battles. So like I got to respect the stuff that comes up for her. So she's actually coming out to visit like in a week or so with my little niece. Yeah, so my brothers and sisters, I have one sister from my dad, like I said, half sister. She's doing awesome. She like started her own like social media company. She's doing great. Then I've got a brother in prison right now. I got another brother in he hasn't been to jail in a while, but he's he was in and out. I got a sister in in rehab right now. And then I have another sister who she's doing pretty good. She's got a couple kids, like found a good guy. So there's just a lot on my mom's side. There is a lot of, I don't know, angst. I don't know what to call it.
Just trauma.
Yeah, just trauma that's going on. Yeah.
The SWAT team kicked in his door in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
True story. True story. Yeah.
That's sort of like that's the opening scene to like the movie about your childhood trauma. It feels
Right.
like is the SWAT team kicking in your
Front door. Yeah.
front door.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So one of the misconceptions, I think, of folks who look and say, "If I could," and I think that's that pursuit of happiness, that phrase, "If I could just," I think that's a damaging sentence. If I could just fill in the blank. Once you get past, have a place to sleep and some food,
Yeah.
and some relationships,
some
right?
basic
if I
needs.
could just, man, if I was able to write a book, get an audience, get a thing, then slate gets wiped clean for me. Everything's easy. Beautiful spouses show up and
That's
just
right.
want to marry you, right?
Yeah.
What I love, I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty here, is there's human stories behind all this stuff.
Yeah, man.
And those human stories show up random places at weird times, and still got to, mom's coming in a week.
Yeah.
Exhale, right?
Yeah,
and here
yeah.
I'm gonna be intentional about how, right? And that backs me. Before this conversation, I had wrapped my head around minimalism as a way of being with stuff. It's not.
Man.
It has to do with an approach to how you walk through life,
Yeah.
right? Because some of the things you're saying about getting rid of, I hear that when people call the show when they're talking about a toxic spouse or a toxic story you've been telling yourself your whole life, or parents who fill in the blank have their own version of the way you should be living or whatever that looks like. And the ethos sounds like it works. They're the same, right? It's just an approach to earth.
Yeah. It's the initial bite of the apple. Like all that physical stuff is it's a physical manifestation of what's going on in here. So once you get rid of that, at least for me, when I got rid of that outward stuff, and I know it's worked for millions of other people, but you start to make room to work with that spiritual clutter, the mental clutter, all that internal stuff that's going on. You can start to examine not just like, why am I bringing this book into my life? It's, why am I bringing this relationship into my life? Why am I bringing this job into my life?
Again.
Yeah.
And again. Right. Yeah.
Why am I bringing in this pursuit into my life?
Oh.
So, it's interesting how minimalism, it's kind of the stuff is kind of the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
That's where it starts, but it does go so much deeper.
So are y'all parents?
Yeah.
Y'all have kids?
Yeah. I've got an 8-year-old.
8-year-old. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you doing different? What makes you a good dad?
Well, I think kids are so much wiser than their parents.
Uh-huh.
And I don't mean like earned knowledge over the years, and that's something that's different. But it's funny. Her school teaches her mindfulness, which is hilarious because who's more mindful than a child? And what that really tells me is that the school spends 6 hours and 45 minutes a day making her not mindful, and then they try to say, well, now we're going to get back into our minds, so to speak. But who is more intentional? Who's more in the moment? Who is more present than a child? And so I think as a parent, I have so much to learn from my daughter,
Mm.
like how to be human in a way, because I've unlearned that humanity over the last 40 years or whatever, and it's been acculturated
Yeah.
out of me, right? Especially through the pursuit of the things. The thing you want is never the thing you want.
Yeah.
You think you want. I had a Lexus, and that didn't do it for me, so I bought a second Lexus. So now I have Lexi and 2 car payments, and whatever it is, a 72-month loan, and all of these things, and it's like, oh, but what did I actually want there? Oh, I wanted status. I wanted significance. That's fascinating. You think you're going to get significance from a shiny car?
From a depreciating asset? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How weird is that, right? Well, why do I think that? Well, because I've been told that. I've seen other people who I believe to be significant. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with a car. I own a car now, right? There's not even anything wrong with a Lexus. I'm sure they make wonderful cars. The problem is thinking that is the thing
It's
that
going to
is
solve you.
it's going to solve me. Yeah. And so the thing I've learned from Ella, is my daughter, is that we're so far away from the moment all the time. We're clinging to the past, right? Or we're clinging to some hypothetical, non-existent future, right? And we're so far away from right here,
Mm.
right now.
One of the things I recommend to parents all the time is to touch your kid's face. And there's a lot of physiology about kids and nerve endings in their face.
Mm.
But what often that's a trick for me to get parents to put their phones down and get eye level with their kid and be present with their kid. Right? It's a both and, right? But there's something about that presence, right?
Yeah.
Can
I start touching your face, Josh?
That's what this show's for. And you didn't know this was coming,
I don't
Josh.
have kids, so
he's got to be your guy.
I'll start doing that with my wife. I'll just start touching her.
Yeah.
I love it.
What's one thing your kid's going to learn from you?
Yeah, my friend Rob Bell says that kids are always learning from you, and sometimes it's from your words.
They watch you. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating. I remember when she was really young, and I would tell her, it's like, make sure you use your fork, and then all of a sudden 3 seconds later she sees me pull a piece of broccoli off her mom's plate and pop it in my mouth. And of course it's like, oh, well, I'm telling you to do one thing, and I've become a parody of the parent where it's like, do as I say, not as I do, right? And so I think what she'll learn from me is, well, it's the title of the book, really. I mean, it's love people, use things, right? For the longest time, I used people and loved things. And we have a language problem. I can say that I love you, John, but I also love tacos, right? And one thing means like extreme like, but I think most of us, we don't really understand love.
Not even a little bit.
No. To love someone is to see them who they are without trying to change them, right? And so if Ella learns anything from me, it's that she's her own human being. She's not me. It's not me trying to force her into anything. Although anytime I do, because I feel like I always know what is best. Sometimes I do. Boundaries are important for an 8-year-old, of course. Sometimes we can erect these unnecessary boundaries. You ever been to someone's house and they just have too many walls in it?
Yes.
You're like, well, wait a minute. What? Who decided to put a wall here and then one right there as well? And I think we do that so frequently with our kids and with our relationships in general. We're putting up all of these barriers between us and the people we love.
For this imaginary catastrophic ending that more than likely won't ever come.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it does, those walls aren't going to stop it anyway, right? So, yeah.